hey, you know, the Felix Baumgartner jump was all fake. It was staged. It was green screen. Okay, I will agree, and then I'll stay neutral on it at the same damn time if that's possible. But think about this. We all looked at that footage. This guy's supposed to be over New Mexico at 127,000 feet. New Mexico is fucking huge, dude. If that video was real, you couldn't see any other states. You couldn't see anything else. And according to what some scientists had did and mathematicians who talked about this relating to flat Earth, they're saying, wait a minute, if the Earth's rotating at 1,100 miles an hour, the amount of time that it took him to go up to 127,000 feet and the amount of time that he was supposedly stationary at that altitude, and then the amount of time it took him to literally come back down to the Earth, this dude should have parachuted over fucking California. From New Mexico, where he took off, he should have landed in California. But everyone wants to dispense with the idea that that was actually real.
Well, because that's where science collides with belief. Those people believe that the atmosphere, the water, and everything spins with the physical ground that we're supposed to be on.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious. We already know the Earth is not, the ground we walk on is not rotating. I'm not going to say the Earth, because if I say the Earth, everyone takes it as a general term. When I do say the Earth, I want everyone to understand I'm talking about the ground I walk on. That's Earth. It's dirt, rocks, dog shit, pebbles, nanodiamonds, whatever.
And that dog shit.
You know? But when people, if you want to speak in the general terms, the Earth, the landmass we live on and work on is not rotating. The outer atmospheres are. That's obvious when you look up in the sky and you see those star trails. I mean, we're starting to question all that shit now, but I want John, if he's still in here, we're going to bring up the information on the railgun. So John got that information. I got a document. I can pull up that document, John. You just show your information and do the share screen, because that's the second piece of information we want to provide with regard to another solid data, because Hank's information was very good as well. Hillbilly came in and made some corrections on that stuff, but both pieces of information are good. We want to go with the rail gun because the Navy says they got a rail gun that can shoot something from 100 nautical miles. And understand, people, there's a difference between a nautical mile and a regular statute mile. So go for it, Jay.
Yeah, am I sharing my screen?
Yeah, I'm presenting you right now.
All right, we already went over this before, but let's do it again.
Hang on, Jay. It's not up on the watch page. There you go. It's up on the watch page.
Okay. Like I said, we went through this before. I guess we went through it a little bit too quick. Let's try it again. See, naval railgun. The projectile travels 5,600 miles per hour. That's Mach 7. You see this thing right here? This is more or less a rifle that fires a bullet. Okay? As we said before, this has a range of 125 miles. Right? It's right here. We showed the video. They even pointed out, they themselves, the ones that designed the railgun, are just they're showing you a shot from Washington to Philadelphia. What's this number here? 125 miles. So we could put that to bed, right? It doesn't even matter. We can go down to 110 miles or 100 miles. It makes no difference. So, this is a line-of-sight weapon. They're not going to say it's a line-of-sight weapon because it's inherent. They're not going to tell you that a rifle is a line-of-sight weapon because it's because it's a rifle, right? We're going to put the railgun 100 feet above sea level. That's right off the deck of a destroyer or a cruiser, and I'm even given the benefit of the doubt with this because I think it's much lower. And according to Mark, it's like 30 or 50 feet. So I'm given 100 feet. So more than enough breathing room here. So, as I said before, a target at 125 miles, we can go ahead and pull off the calculator. Right? So, the distance is 125 miles. The viewer height, or the height of the railgun, is 100 feet above the deck, above sea level. So we're going to calculate again. So the horizon distance is 12.25 miles. The hidden amount is 8,476 feet. The key one here is this bulge height. And like I said, you go down here. This is where the railgun is on the ship. So this bullet has to go from here to the target at 125 miles. It has to ascend and descend at Mach 7. Now, anyone that can fog a mirror knows that this is impossible. I don't know any other way to put it. Okay? I can't break this down any further. So, let's employ some actual science. So, like I said before, we went over this a few times in past videos, the null hypothesis. To do a hypothesis test, you will actually have two hypotheses, the null and the alternative, which are stated in such a way that they are mutually exclusive. Makes sense. The null hypothesis is the conclusion that is considered the default. You will accept this hypothesis if you fail to find sufficient support for the alternative hypothesis, right? So, the null. If the Earth is flat, then shots taken with a line-of-sight weapon, a non-self-propelled projectile, it's a bullet, will not be limited to the Earth's curvature. Bulge and target hidden amount to effectively engage targets for said distance and elevation according to the alleged curvature, which we've just shown. This is the ball earthers' hypothesis. They need to validate this. By validating this, they falsify this. Make sense? This is their hypothesis. If the Earth is a sphere with a circumference of 24,901 miles with a radius of 3959, then shots taken with a line-of-sight weapon, it's a non-self-propelled projectile, i.e. bullets, will be limited to the Earth's curvature, bulge and target hidden amount to effectively engage targets. So, they need to prove this one, validate this hypothesis, whereby falsifying the null. You have to falsify the null. If you can't, then you're finished, right? Scientifically speaking. It's already been validated. They've already said it. It has a range of 125 miles. They've already tested this, as you can see here, for the 1,000th time. The Navy helps to use the railgun for multiple missions, including precision, surface fire support. We'll see that here and again in a second. Land strikes, cruise missile, and ballistic missile defense. The weapon will also be used to fight surface ships. Surface ships are on the surface, right? This weapon, Dr. Roger McGinnis, he's the executive in charge of the railgun program. The weapon does all of its damage because of its speed. Speed. It can't be an indirect fire weapon because it's a bullet. It has no explosive. See this? The weapon is called a railgun and requires neither gunpowder, nor explosive. It is powered by electromagnetic rails that accelerate a hardened projectile, it's about the size of a football, to a staggering velocity. Here it is again. It uses no gunpowder or chemical propellants. It's good in a sense for the Navy because it eliminates the need to carry dangerous explosives on the warship. Here we go again. The 25-pound projectile is a non-explosive bullet. Everyone say it with me. Non-explosive bullet. The incredible speed allows the projectile to strike the target with enough kinetic energy to destroy it with no need for explosives. See that? Now, the naval fire support, we roll down here to naval gunfire characteristics. Naval gunfire has a flat trajectory. So, As an indirect fire weapon, like artillery, well, they use HE, or high explosive, or incendiary rounds. The Navy railgun projectile is non-explosive. It does all of its damage due to its speed for the 1,000th time. Using it as an indirect fire weapon, the projectile will lose most of its speed and drop a piece of dead 25-pound hunk of metal from the sky. That's really scary, right? I'm sure the Navy's not going to spend $1 billion friggin' to drop 25 pieces of dead metal anywhere. This is tantamount, if you say it's an indirect fire weapon, this is tantamount to claiming that an M16 or M60 or another rifle is an indirect fire weapon. Okay? Is there any questions about this? I can't break this down any further. I really can't. Go ahead. I'm done.
You know, it's interesting because I want Mark to go ahead and make everyone laugh on the math you did, Mark, with regard to if the rail gun was being fired on a round Earth. Tell everybody where the rail gun would need to be located if it was on a ball.
Well, to go as far as, was it 120, 125 miles, it'd have to be 9,600 feet in elevation to shoot a straight line. And going back to what John was saying about it being, it's the speed that's the key.
Exactly.
If you're shooting something with a 15-degree up angle at Mach 6, Mach 7, whatever it's supposed to be at, it's going to go further than 125 miles.
Exactly.
And that's the key. It's a flat trajectory weapon. It uses that speed to go 125 miles in almost a flat trajectory because it needs that speed in order to go 125 miles in a flat plane. So you can't say that you're going to shoot something at Mach 6 and put a 20-degree up angle on it.
So is it using line of sight targeting then to aim at the ship at 100 miles, which I think they've got this technology to do that. They're either sophisticated pinpoint, cone radar that will actually focus into that point at that distance. So it
all you need is a bearing. You don't need to calculate an angle.
So they just aim. They say it's at that bearing and bang far, and it just travel at that distance straight at 50 feet, 100 feet.
Boom, D4, you sank my battleship.
You sank my battleship.
That's exactly what it is. Boom.
That is basically what it is. I've heard people. I had mentioned this before on some other channels, and people like, oh well, it's going through the Newtonian, laws of gravity, and it's just got enough velocity to keep falling around the Earth. Yeah. I'm like, look, man, what the fuck don't you understand about line of sight? Do you know what that means? That means you can see what the hell you're shooting at. Binoculars don't see around corners.
Well, Robert, pull the Metabunk thing up to where you can input the data, and we'll put that 9,600 feet in there.
I got it. What do you want?
Oh, I got it.
Just put in viewer height, because if you want to go the distance to the horizon, because basically you're shooting a ship on the water, you're shooting it basically at the horizon, as far as you can go, correct?
Yeah.
So if you punch in 9,600 feet, there you go. The horizon distance is 100 miles, so if you're trying to shoot it straight, that's how high you got to be.
So there you go. If you were on a ball, you could shoot. If you were on a ball, that's basically what Mark is saying. It's not basically. If the rail gun was on a damn basketball, that rail gun would have to be bolted to the basketball at 9,600 feet to hit a target 120 miles away.
Hey, maybe they got one of those flying aircraft carriers like in Captain America.
No. Some people will say, well, yeah, they got these big, 60-millimeter guns that you can put on C-130s, the airships. No, you're not going to put a rail gun on a C-130 airship. No way. Because as soon as you fire it, the whole aircraft will explode.
Yeah, you might be able to put a small, like that guy built that 27,000 joule rail gun.
Yeah. They couldn't put that damn thing on an aircraft.
But all he could do was put it through the outer shell of a car door, through the window, but it didn't penetrate into the car, and that was from about a distance of 10, 15 feet away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
27,000 joules. So imagine what you would need. Yeah.
See, what I want to talk about is this, because I mean, you know, we're back on this topic, talking about the construct and design and visual confirmation of the Earth. And it dawned on me why over 7 million people still believe the Earth is round. Okay? Because the views that are being shown to all of us, the view that's being shown to all of us, the majority view, has been from high altitude. And if 7 million people were allowed to see the video I put out, that there's multiple layers above our heads that give off a view, a perceptual view, that there's curvature to the Earth. You got 7 million people who are just summarily agreeing and confirming, yes, the Earth is a round ball, because I've seen the curvature at high altitude. But when you tell them, okay, then what do you see when you're standing on the ground? Well, of course it's flat. See, they're saying we have confirmation bias, right? But it's 7 million people who have confirmation bias, because they'll admit that when they're standing on the ground, they can see for as far as the eye can see on a clear day, right? But when they're at high altitude in a plane, or they've seen some video footage, and you see curvature, they're not sure if they're seeing the furthest distance edge of what could be some sort of curved type of object, you know, or they're looking at atmospheric lensing, where the light's being bended to give them the appearance that the rest of the Earth may be a ball. Because when you look at high altitude footage, you can't see, you can only see the horizon line. And even then, the horizon line you're seeing, you don't know how much further it could actually go at high altitude. You just can't see it. I mean, I always thought in the beginning when I started talking about this that Antarctica was the outer ice edge, because the blue hue, the blue and white rim hue that I was seeing from a distance at high altitude, it was similar to what you see in the cryogenic environment. You see that cold cryo air rising in the atmosphere, which gave you that blue hue that the Earth has. That's what ice does. Robert Sherman can tell you that. Yeah. He and I were talking just the other day. He says that the ice in Antarctica is like basically void of oxygen and any gases, and it's the bluest ice he's ever seen. It's like rock solid petrified blue.
Yep, it's pure blue. If you can probably Google that type of thing, and it's just deoxygenated ice that's been in the ice shelf for such a long length of time that it gets compressed to such a level that it compresses the oxygen out of it, and instead of it being white or transparent like normal ice is if you just chuck it in the freezer, it comes out blue. So you get that blue hue from that naturally as well.
That's interesting. I mean, that's definitely an experiment worth testing out to see if you can literally freeze ice yourself to make it that same color blue.
Hey,
if you
Robert,
can remove the gas from it.
Robert, before we move on, I would just like to say that beyond the subjective, this is objective and empirical. What they have to do is validate this. If they can't validate this empirically, then it's over. We can move on to discuss other things.
And you're right about that, because I've been looking for the documents for literally 20 years. When I first learned in school what the circumference of the Earth was, the first thing I wanted to do was show me the document that proves exactly how this measurement was obtained. Where did they start?
Well, that went back to Aristophanes, right? But his was based on a presupposition that the Earth was a ball. If you remove that presupposition, then what do you got?
Well, I mean, and I understand where you're coming from, but here's the thing. There was information that I ran across where his measurement was actually misinterpreted, and it puts the Earth at 250,000 miles in circumference.
No, he was correct. He was correct. However, he was basing it all off the presupposition of a ball. If you remove that presupposition, then it all falls apart because you haven't isolated any independent variables. Because the cause of it can change. If you had a flat Earth with a small sun, well, guess what? You get the same result.
Yeah.
So his presupposition, everything's based on a presupposition.
Aristophanes' data, I mean, it's just incomplete all around. I mean, there's no way this guy could have known.
Well, it's a begging the question fallacy.
Even with him assuming it was a ball, he starts in his region, gathering some measurements. What was the distance when he did the standing?
I don't even remember.
Huh?
Oh,
I don't remember.
Points. It was like 200 some miles at least.
Yeah. So he used the Standia method. It was basically the distance a camel could travel from one city to another. That's what he used, the Standia, right?
I think they were using some form of Skype to communicate between each other back then.
Yeah, right.
How are two people hundreds of miles apart going to communicate to do something at the same time?
No, well, I don't know how he did it. I honestly don't know how he did it. But he used this measurement that I had used with Jeff, and we did that calculation, and for me, it's still inconclusive because I can't find any other data where someone actually replicated the experiment in the 19th, 20th, 21st century. No one's done it.
Without using
tried to replicate the experiment.
Without using a communication device.
Right, that's the same thing with the Cavendish experiment. Find me one experiment that repeated it exactly the way he did it. Good luck.
They can't do it. They can't do it.
Nope, it doesn't work.
It's not science.
No, they can't do it. So, but we're still using that science today to keep telling people that.
No, that's not science. That's not science. They're labeling under science, but that's not science. That's pure conjecture. That's philosophy or religion.
It's propaganda.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been up in an aircraft, like I've been up in a private aircraft, I've flown a Cirrus SR-22, and I was about, 10,000 feet average, put it on autopilot, right? We're flying in Carlsbad, California, and the distance from Carlsbad, where we flew, to Temecula, it's about a 2-hour drive, but it was about a 30-minute flight. 30-minute flight from there. And even at 10,000 feet, I don't know how big California is, but let's just say 25,000 miles in circumference. Man, you can be up at 35,000 feet and see more land, more square miles of land than that. You can't tell me the Earth is 25,000 miles around. I've never believed it. When you look down at the Earth on your next commercial flight, anywhere you're going to fly, just try to develop a precog visual picture of what 25,000 miles looks like. Okay? Just do a 25,000 mile radius of where you live. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. Pull up a map, Google Earth Pro, and pick anywhere on the map where you live. Use the tools, the measuring tools, and then zoom out that circle to do a 25,000 mile radius. And I guarantee you Based on that 25,000-mile radius, you tell me if the Earth is really 25,000 miles around. And I'll tell you here right now, if you say the Earth is 25,000 miles around, I'll put you on my health insurance policy to get your fucking eyes checked. Because there's no way. There's no way. I don't understand how they got people still believing this. I mean, even the fake footage they show online with NASA, when they show these aircraft at high altitude, I mean, how do people really have no idea where they are? Where they will believe this?
They blindly believe
basic
really? Assumptions.
The amount of people that just don't care is staggering.
I want to show everybody something. I pulled up Google Earth Pro. And I want to
hold on, let me get out.
Robert, can I say one thing? So I got to go.
Go ahead, brother.
And I don't know if I'll be back by the time you guys are finished. I know we've talked about it a couple sessions ago about measuring the distance to the moon and stuff.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there who's listening who lives in the southern hemisphere that has to look to the north in order to see the moon, okay, where you have a northern view of it, get in contact with us, because we've got enough people in the northern hemisphere. We need at least 1 or 2 people in the southern hemisphere to make this experiment work. You have to be able to measure bearing and angle, azimuth, to the moon. However you can do this, sextant, telescope, whatever means you have is good enough, as long as you can measure the bearing to it and an angle up to it. Okay? So that's all I got to say.
Okay.
All right.
Since we're on the subject of the moon, can I say something real fast?
No.
Solar eclipse. If you type in the solar eclipse for 2017, you'll see that the solar eclipse always have a very small window of about 100 to 200 miles. Now, if we're talking about a moon that is 1/4 the size of the Earth, I'm asking this question: how do you cast a shadow on the object and that shadow be smaller than the object itself?
Impossible.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
I got a quick tidbit about that 25,000 mile radius here. In a 25,000 mile circumference, the diameter is close to 8,000 miles.
Okay, now check this out though. I've got Google Earth Pro pulled up right now. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, now look up at the left-hand side, right here where it shows radius in feet and area in square miles. Now, every damn space agency, the USGS, US Navy, whoever, Google, they're telling us the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. Well, let me show you something here right now. This is the measurement tool for Google. So if you want to debunk Google, you debunk them. Don't debunk me. I'm using their shit. Here is 25,000 square miles. Right there, give or take. 25,676.83 miles. People, that's not even fucking covering Kansas. That's 25,676 miles. Now that's not even.
Yeah, Robert, you're using square miles.
Yeah, and that's what I said. They said the Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference. Okay, you want me to change it? All right, let's do it. Let's go to. When you want me to go, well, I can only go nautical miles or miles.
Go to
Let me use nautical miles. Hello.
No, you're using square miles. That's what's throwing you off a little bit.
Oh, rather it be a little bit or a lot. Square miles.
hold on, the circumference. That's what you want to look at, the circumference. It's right up under it.
Yeah, let me change.
Okay, so let me see here.
Go to, do this. I want you to change that circumference. I'm going to go to 25,000 square miles.
So,
All right, let me go to there. Now type in 2,991,659 feet. Convert that to miles. What do you got?
20. Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. I got you. Okay, 25,000 miles to feet is.
No. Take the circumference of 2,991,659 feet. Convert that to miles.
Okay, I'm gonna say 3 million. Feet to miles. $568 miles.
Okay, 568 miles. That's what you got?
Yeah.
Okay, let me keep going. We just keep going.
That's why I want to. Okay.
Hang on, let me keep going.
Take 25,000 miles to feet, right? This will tell you how many feet you need.
Okay, what do you got? Enter in this number. Enter 38,532 feet. 38,532,000 feet. Enter in that.
Okay. Feet. Miles. Okay. You got 7,297 miles.
7,000?
Yeah.
Okay, let me keep going. So we already got the United States covered, right? So check this out. Let's keep going. Let me cover all the United States.
Instead of guessing, I just converted 25,000 miles to feet.
How many feet is it?
Okay, so it's 1.32 with 8 zeros behind it.
So it's billion. You said one what?
1.32 E plus 8. Let me try to get the long number for that.
Yeah, see, that don't make no fucking sense right now. That's crazy. You can't even, they won't even let you measure that shit on Google Earth, bro. They won't even let you measure that.
The calculations don't add up with their own calculations, do they?
Holy shit. They won't even, I can't go any further.
Because it doesn't matter.
I can't go any further. I can't even go outside the Earth. I can't even get the feet measurement that he just gave me. You can't even go outside of the Earth to measure it. What else do I need to do? There's nothing else. I can't even go outside the Earth, man.
That's only 131 million. Hold on. That's only 131 million feet.
That's what I'm saying. The number you gave me for 25,000 miles into feet circumference.
Yeah.
In feet. I'm only at 131 million feet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's supposed to be 13,200,000,000 feet.
Oh, great. There you go. End the fucking story. I don't need to argue that.
Damn.
End the fucking story. I don't even need to go in anymore with that shit. Then that's the end of that one. That's it. You guys saw it for yourself.
No, it was right. It was right. 132 million feet. 132 million feet. I did it wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
oh, dude, come on, man.
It's still short, way off. It's still way off.
It's still way off, man.
It should be exactly accurate if they're trying to base it on the maths they're basing it in the first place. They can't even get that
there you
right.
go. The maps are not right, man. Yeah, see, that propaganda says that 131 million feet is 24,000 miles, 24,810 miles.
That's what Stephen Hawking tried to do. He used all math.
So where the hell is the rest of? Where's the rest? How are they rounding up to 25,000 miles? Where are they getting this number from? That's what I want to know. I've been searching for the original data. Where are they getting this number from?
It's supposedly some plane flight around the equator. Some famous plane flight that some bald head said, we have measured the equator. Somebody circumnavigated the Earth.
Okay, yeah, flying at what altitude? That's my point. Because here's the thing. They weren't on the ground, of course, so they were in the air. So at what altitude did they determine, okay, we're going to fly at this fixed altitude to go around the equator? See, what they're not factoring in is this. If you're flying, if we took off from Ecuador, right, to get up to, say, 25,000 feet, you're going to travel maybe, what, 10, 15 miles before you get to 25,000 feet. Because you're not just going to jump straight up to 25,000. So you got to factor in the distance you traveled from the time you took off from that airport to the distance you travel to get to 25,000 feet, and then you begin your measurement. But you still, when you're done, you got to factor in the distance you traveled as soon as you took off down the runway, got up in the air, and you hit 25,000. You got to include that distance as well. Unless they flew around, they had some sort of fixed longitude and latitude device that said, okay, boom, we're at 25,000. Let's start the clock right here. Let's start the measurement right here because we're at 25,000. But let's remember, we got to fly back to this same position to get an accurate measurement. They didn't do that. They flew, whatever aircraft they used, they flew from one place to another, leapfrogging, and just came up with some mean average number to say, okay, it's 25,000 miles of circumference. Because the higher you go in altitude, all right, the further you'll be able to go.
The plane's going to be limited in range as well, so it's going to have to be stopping at all these most convenient airports or places where it's refuel, which is mean it's going to be a whole zigzag thing all the way up to where it is. How can I calculate from that?
Exactly, Robert. They weren't flying in a fucking straight line. And they weren't flying in a fucking straight line. This is, man.
I'll put a link in the side chat right there.
Damn, dude, I'm so confused, man. I just want to go to another planet, man. Because this place is all fucked up, man. We don't know what the hell is going on, dude.
Hey, but wait a second, Robert. Was it flying east or west?
We don't. Who knows, dude?
Well, the equator, at the equator, it's supposed to be spinning what? At 1,000 miles an hour, right?
1,000 miles an hour, which means that they had to have been flying real fast.
Well, before it could get to its destination, it would the destination would come up on its 6.
So all they had to do was just stay in one place on a balloon.
Watch the world go by, yeah.
It'll never get there flying east.
Yeah, that's true. Because that's all he had to do was just put a balloon up in the air and say, just give it about 30 minutes. We'll get the measurement. We'll be back down.
Yeah, it's gonna bum rush him.
You know? I mean, this is crazy, dude. This is just absolutely crazy, dude. Hang on for a second, people.
That's what Picard had supposedly did in a balloon.
Yeah, he was quite right, didn't he? 10, 11 miles.
Let me see. 46,000 feet, I think.
I think Picard went up to like 57,000. 1 second.
Let's see. On the link I'm looking at, it doesn't say.
Yeah, 1 second, I got it.
Right, so
51,775 feet on May 27th, 1931. And what did he say? It said, through the portholes, the observers saw the Earth through copper-colored, then bluish haze. It seemed a flat disk with an upturned edge. That's from Popular Science magazine, 1931, 10 miles high and an airtight ball. There you go.
Observation and repetition. You can repeat these things. You see, the rest of these things are just theoretics.
I never even heard of Picard before, other than Star Trek.
This is again balloons you can repeat, whereas this circumference nonsense and size of it, you know, how can they measure that? And knowing what we know now, that it's just pure nonsense. The size that we're working from and the dimensions that they're giving us, it just doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, if they knew it then, you know, it was pretty much hidden again. You know, they thought, oh well, we'll shut him up. He's discovered that what the world looks like from a height, and ever since then they've always used those manipulated cameras that don't show the true perspective of what you're seeing naturally. You know, yes, the human eye is kind of convex, but you can still represent what you're seeing physically without the distortion, without the wide angle, without the fisheye lens. And the NASA thing, you know, well, that's just unbelievable with the footage on that. It's just completely rubbish. And it's clear why they're finishing it.
You know, a while ago you asked why so many people believe in the ball, and I find that what they do is they take evidence that disproves the ball, and they flip it around on us and say that it proves the ball. So we don't ever think to counter it like that. For example, back in the day they used aluminum foil to make their spacesuits, and when we call them out on their bullshit, they often say, "Oh, you're wearing an aluminum foil hat. You know, take off your foil hat," and they do this all the time.
Yeah, they just they throw conjecture every time they want to speak. So, you know, you say black, they say white, you say white. They just keep kind of coming at you that direction, whereas if they really actually check for themselves, they'd see what they're saying was rubbish, and if they checked the details and did a bit of research, it would, you know, they would come up with a different answer. But they don't want to see that. They just want to kind of believe everything they've taught, you know, believe all the health things that they've taught, and it's a shame. They just need to do a bit more research and, you know, check these things out rather than just take.
But once you support your claims with the actual scientific method, then there is no answer. That's why they call you names and bring up silly stuff. But once you post it empirically using the actual scientific method, then it's over.
Yeah, agreed.
See, they don't want us to get past the arguing stage because there's some ramifications with this lie that they've been promoting all this time. Okay, so there's a readjustment and redressing that has to happen.
No, they don't want that. They want to keep pushing it as long as they can. So again, by getting rid of the International Space Station camera and removing that, it means that they can push other productions into force, like the Mars thing and all, you know, that type of preparation, and the rest of their kind of fake footage that they like to push. It's just easier not to have that footage.
They've been committing fraud to the tune of $5 billion a year, NASA.
And I think
all types of other madness going on here.
Because they're getting called out now, they're kind of starting to think, wait, we're getting a bit too much attention, and people are actually seeing it as for what it is. And, you know, when they do these live things on Google, you know, there's been lots of flat Earth people that actually come in and say, well, no, this is not actually correct, and I think they wanted to keep pushing that as long as they can, and now it is actually gaining more attention. They're having to kind of back off and say, right, well, we won't film this footage, and then they won't be able to call out where it is, when it is, and looking at, you know, how rubbish the model they actually do use for that is.
So I've been hanging out in the debate room, and I noticed that, you know, one of their best things to say is, well, how does the eclipse work, you know, on the flat Earth? And then when you show them that, you know, the moon is supposed to be 1/4 the size of the Earth, and the shadow on the Earth is 100, 200 miles tops, well, it should be 6,250 miles if that was a real shadow. And they say, oh, well, you know, it's refraction or diffraction or something like that.
Anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000, that kind of distance and size, where you'll get the actual shadow if you fire a direct light source at the moon with its perspective size in front of the Earth.
What is the shadow refracting?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. They take stuff that disproves what they're saying, and they use it against us. They always flip everything around, like the Coriolis effect. They say, well, that proves that we're on a spinning ball, but when you bring up the Felix Baumgartner jump, and he landed 70 miles away, he was up there for 3 hours, it should have been 2,100 miles away.
Well, simple plane flight destroys that. We already went over it. But with the lunar eclipses, how do you explain the sun and the moon being above the horizon on a lunar eclipse?
They can't explain it. Nobody can. It's because it's all got to be closer, like I did in that video the other day.
It's got to be. And
everything's got to be closer.
Yeah, and because if you use the ball math, right, when you triangulate the sun, it comes up to close to 3,000 miles high, and about 30 miles across. So we all know that that's impossible, man. We found that out, that much out. So it has to be a lot lower, and the Earth has to be much, much huger.
You know, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys, and it's just I'm reaching out. I've been trying to locate virtual online experiments, and I discovered something in the process of searching. I wanted to validate that science that I put out. Well, actually, it wasn't science. It was an experiment that European Southern Observatory conducted with a 22-watt laser, shooting it up into the atmosphere, and they hit what they call the sodium atom layer at 90 to 110 kilometers. Well, I went into my online library I have for the stuff I do for the classes I have now, and when I clicked on the mystery substance and I tried to enter in the refractive index for sodium, I went to look it up. I couldn't even, they wouldn't let me type anything less than 1.0. So I went looking at other universities to see if they had any software. You won't believe this. They list all of the elements, gases, liquids, any other type of solid material matter. Guess which substance is not listed that you can add for environment or material medium when you're firing a laser? Sodium. You couldn't enter in sodium because the refractory index can't be measured when using light. Now, I don't know what that proves and what it doesn't prove, but I can tell you here right now, if they hit that barrier at 90 to 110 kilometers, that means a 22-watt laser, even if the laser was capable of being dialed up to 30, 40, 50 watts, that means there's an impenetrable layer of sodium atoms at 90 to 110 kilometers. And then it dawned on me, if there's an impenetrable layer of sodium atoms where a 22-watt laser can't even get through it, how the hell are rockets going through this sodium atom layer? Does that mean that the actual Kármán line is not a line where space is actually begins And that's where Theodore Carmen and all of these physicists had agreed back in the 1930s when they got together for the, what was the international, it was called the International Science Year or something like that. And they all agreed that the international standard where space begins is approximately, they don't say exactly, approximately 100 kilometers. When I went through the data again, I had an epiphany. That's not the line where space begins. That's the limit to where we can go. That's the limit. That's the ceiling. You can't get any further than 100 kilometers.
That's why.
And when you have atmospheric expansion, maybe you can get to 110 kilometers, but there's nothing beyond that. You can't get beyond that level. That's the only logical explanation that I can come up with personally on why a 22-watt laser just suddenly hits a barrier of sodium atoms. You get them excited and they glow to create an artificial star.
Yeah, that's probably why the rockets curl off and do their power
Exactly.
bomb up.
Exactly.
They can't go up there, and if they did, it would, you know, it would go up, hit, and blow up, and come back down, and they know.
Exactly. And get this. Do you know that in NASA's documents, the number 33 and 45 is in there? Now, I don't want to play semantics with numbers, but get this. If a rocket takes off, you got an initial 90-degree vertical lift, right? And then as it continues to gain altitude and acceleration, guess what trajectory it takes? 45 degrees. Guess what angle they claim the sun is shining its light? 45 degrees. Guess what angle the sun is potentially, the moon. They list that at almost the same angle, which means everything is within some sort of curved dome, and you've got to get to that 45-degree angle or you're hitting a fucking brick wall.
Yeah.
You're hitting a wall. Because when I talked to that airline who does those civilian flights down in Antarctica, they wouldn't even answer my question on what altitude that they are at before they hit Antarctica and they have to drop to 10,000 feet. She didn't even want to answer the question.
Hey, Robert.
Go ahead.
Robert, Robert that's on the call, he's been to Antarctica, correct?
Yeah, he's been flying aircraft. Ask him. He's been in aircraft.
Yeah, I did about a week or two flying out there in total. So yeah, the heights they say on Google Maps don't match up with the heights that I was landing and flying at in certain places, because I looked at the places and then thought, you know, because they give a supposed topographical height and where you're meant to be and what you're looking at, and some of the places didn't match up, and I thought that was pretty interesting.
Did anything else stand out to you? How long did you stay down there?
About 18 months altogether.
Oh, wow, that's
13 months at the main base, and then did about 2 or 3 months traveling around the peninsula.
And what was the main base?
Halley.
Halley?
Yeah, it's British, the British most southern base that they have there.
Okay.
The other ones are based on the peninsula and the islands dotted around it.
Right. Does anyone go into the interior?
No. And those who are, that is kind of controlled. Well, it was.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, they just let the top brass go down there. No one else.
Shocking.
Way of doing it on purpose, because then you've got the most controlled and the person that's never going to say anything anyway go down there and then just do, you know, supposedly go there. It's to hide the stuff that, you know, they've got.
Hey, Robert, I wanted to ask you too, and there's always been a question that was, you know, I'd always forgot to ask you. Was there an altitude ceiling in Antarctica?
Yeah, but the altitude, because it was a non-pressurized aircraft, it was kind of, once you get beyond 14, 15,000 feet, it didn't really go much higher than that. But yeah, the highest I got was about 14,500 feet, flying about just under 1,000 feet. So the ice was about 13,500, 14,000 feet below me. So we're literally kind of going above that to keep it, So yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah,
Wow.
it was all flat pretty much, but sloping up from the edge of the the shelf wall, which runs all the way around. So there is a shelf wall, but within those walls you have a breakdown where the ice breaks actually off, and you can actually just get like a bulldozer and just shape the slope down. So that's what they use to get vehicles and stuff in and out, because you just wouldn't be able to do it if you had to try and get it up a cliff. That would be it. Other bases are different. Other bases have more of a rocky kind of area, but again, they're all based around the edge of the ring. There's not the only ones that really are central are the US controlled one, and it makes no sense with their map that they use, which is that pie chart that everything leads to the middle. Because in that theory, then every country owns a section or overlaps a section that they own and has
Yeah.
that ability to go to those places without restriction. But there is restriction there, and it is controlled.
Well, there is one piece of pie that's been left unclaimed, but it's mostly when the ice melts, it's just nothing but open water, and that's what got me at calling NASA to ask that question: what was wrong with the satellite coverage over that center area, and why was it black? And they never got back to me. And then Bob put out that video with Globebusters that Antarctica was actually two separate land masses, and at the center, between the center of the both of them, in the winter times, it just ices over, which gives the appearance that it's one single landmass.
I think when they flew their high altitude camera balloons or the aircraft with the cameras sticking out the back, they've neglected to put that bit of footage in Google, because it would show where these areas are. So they purposely kind of black it out or keep the image distorted or completely irrelevant, so they just clone the whole lot of cloth so it just looks like a big lump of white. Because I've searched for places that exist on there and I haven't found them. When I was there, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just look for that and look for that and look for that. No, even when I found those places previously and then looked again, they've disappeared or moved. So there's a lot of hidden stuff. The same as with the military bases, and anywhere that's covert that they wouldn't want on Google, they'll ensure that it's either edited, deleted, or it's not put in there in the first place.
Yeah, I found a lot of places like that where they actually there's like 2-3 years of missing aerial topography coverage, where as soon as you zoom in, they shade over the area.
Yeah, it only
You see
allows
it from a distance, but when you zoom in, it's not there.
That's right, and they've kind of almost do it so you can zoom in, but as soon as you get close to it, it just breaks up and you can't see the image at all. That's the other way that it's like a kind of layered tile they put over it.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. All right, man. Hank, man, it was definitely good data, bro. We're gonna keep searching. Johnny, what do you think we're gonna talk about next time?
I think the search is over. I mean, unless they falsify that null, which they'll never do, it's over. We should move on. I don't know, maybe talk about baking cookies or something, because it's over.
Well, when you're baking cookies, you use a flat